Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Fellow Crown drinker, I see, and
Yeah, Crown's probably my go-to. I'll dabble into a little bit of other whiskey when I can find it, but
yeah.
Crown's probably my go-to for probably the last 15 years.
Yeah, for Canadian whiskey, there's some really good ones out there. For the kind of connoisseurs and some of the nuts out there, there's one, I think it's like Caribou Crossing is the name of it, but it's made by the same folks that do Blanton's.
Yeah,
it's their Canadian version of Blanton's. Pretty much the bottle looks similar. It's got a big old caribou antler sitting on the top of it. Really good stuff.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. It's hard to find, though. Hard to find.
Yeah, Crown is probably, like I said, my go-to. I do a lot of mixing. I try to hit some of the local places. Iowa Distillery has a good mixing. That their cinnamon whiskey that they have there,
Gotcha.
the Prairie Fire, which is really good. And then I think I told you a guy I went to high school with and am good friends with just opened up a distillery outside of Osceola called Revelton. And
Yeah.
it's a honey infused whiskey and vodka and all kinds of spirits down there. So I've really been kind of hitting his honey whiskey pretty hard here lately. I think I took a bottle down for my golf trip.
Yeah, that honey whiskey can get pretty. Yeah.
It's pretty good. Yeah. So, but
Revelton. I think I listened to that podcast you have. So I guess first let's start with
Sure.
name of your podcast and we'll start there and get to that because I am interested in the Revelton guy. I listened to that one. I was like, man, it was just cool, dude. Cool interview. It was well done. But yeah, what got you into podcasting? What's your podcast? All that stuff.
Well, so I am the co-host of Old Man Strength. It's a podcast which is part of the TailgateSociety.com group. It kind of started last year. I dabbled a little bit in just doing some video editing. I really like to do like college football hype tapes and stuff like that, set it to music and splicing stuff in. So I was playing around with a little bit of that stuff, and I'm pretty prevalent on Twitter. I'm on there probably. That's my one go-to social media.
Gotcha.
I'm on Facebook a little bit, but Twitter's probably where I go to interact with a lot of people. And the founder of Tailgate Society, Ted Flint, had put a post out there that he was looking for people to contribute, whether it was podcasting or video editing or writing or whatever. So I submitted my YouTube channel, and he gave me a call, and it's all Iowa guys spread out across from Iowa. So
Gotcha.
I had no idea what I was going to do when I started it. I just wanted to be, I was 49 years old and thought, let's try something new. So
Yeah.
Turns out I ended up being the oldest guy in the group, and the other older guy messaged me one day. He's like, listen, I follow you on Twitter. I think we have a lot in common. What do you say we do a podcast together? And I was like, well, what are we going to talk about? And he's like, well, it could be just two old men yelling at clouds and trying to solve the world's problems. And I was like, yeah, because the demographic of old white men is completely underserved.
Yes.
That they need two more
absolutely.
people to give them their opinion. But you know what? We thought, let's just see if we can do it. So our initial idea was we were just going to get on there and bitch and complain about stuff. But God, there was so much of that. There was so much negativity out there that we thought, let's put a positive spin on it and just kind of talk about, how we can improve things or in our ideas or in our eyes or whatever. And then it kind of evolved into me telling a lot of stories about my dad because my dad was one crazy SOB.
Yeah.
So we've just kind of found a niche of just two guys, shooting the shit, having drinks and talking about what's going on in the world right now and seeing if we can solve a few problems. And then we started dabbling in some guests and bringing in some guests. We're both Cyclone fans, so I think our first guests were Brent Curvey, who played Cyclone football in the mid-2000s, and George Condit, who's the father of George Condit Jr., who's playing on the men's basketball team now, and he had played in the Walden area when I went to college there.
Gotcha.
So then we started, every once in a while, we'd have a Cyclone legend on, and just throw a line out, see if I can get. And heck, a month ago we had Coach Dan McCarney on, so that was pretty surreal.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, I think I went upstairs. I told my wife, I go, I don't know how to react because Dan McCarney, who I grew up like admiring, just like treated me like an equal, and that's completely surreal to me.
It's so those moments you're like, oh, they're just normal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Like it's so weird when you have those moments of like, oh, they're just a cool dude.
We had Marcus Pfizer on, and he was talking about his minivan or whatever, and I was like, "Are you telling me that Marcus Pfizer, number 4 draft pick to the Chicago Bills, you're driving a minivan?" He's like, "Yeah, Chris, I'm just a normal guy, and
Yeah.
And it was funny, and we're always joking that I used to joke that I rode the Cyride bus up at college, and everybody was like, "Oh, you were a nerd. Nobody cool rides a Cyride," and I was like, "Marcus, did you ride the Cyride when you were there?" He's like, "Yeah, I rode it all the time." I was like, "All right, I'm marking this and telling my wife that Marcus Pfizer was cool enough to ride the Cyride." So was I. Just one of those times where you think, just like a normal guy, and it's fun to just see what you can pull and who you can interview and who you can talk to. So
yeah, that's pretty awesome. Does it like trying to book guests, like when you have a moment like that, and then like, are you ever afraid you're going to be chasing the dragon?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a few out there that I would love to pull, and I've sent some messages and just haven't gotten anything.
Sure.
But I think if you're doing it right and you're treating people with respect when you bring them on, and you're and you give them up front, and you're not trying to trick them and things like that, and then that word gets around, right? I can trust those guys to come on and talk to those guys or whatever else. So
yeah.
And I've gotten to some pretty good relationships out of it, and it's worked out well. So
cool. How long have you been doing that one specifically?
We literally started that September of 2020.
Hell of a year to start
right. Well, yeah, I will
right?
tell you, the very first one was not very polished. It was mostly Trump centric.
Gotcha.
It was which I mean,
it is what
at
it
the
is.
time, and I will tell you that I'm not. And we certainly do not have to get into it. I am not his biggest fan.
Sure.
But it got to the point where it was so exhausting talking about him all the time. I just didn't want to talk about him because there were other things going on in the world. Can we focus on something else? And we made a conscious effort to move away from that and do some other things. And that's when we kind of got into talking about my old man and his business and how crazy he was, and some funny stories from my old man, and it's just kind of evolved from there. We're just two old dads trying to drop some knowledge. We got a Father's Day episode dropping probably Friday, where it was just him and I just telling stories about our dads and some of the life lessons and some of the shit that we pulled when we were kids, and our dads knew about it. So it was a good time.
Good. I got another buddy. So like, I've been doing the podcasting thing about 2 years now. It was like me and my best friend from high school. Like, it just started out as just getting on, talking shit. Really didn't care if anybody, like, I'd lived, I'd move all over the place for my work. And so, like, I was 4 or 5 hours away. So we never get to hang out or see each other. And, like, we used to do poker nights all the time. Can't do that anymore. Can't go to the bar. Like,
you ever want to play some poker?
I'm down, man.
I love playing poker. So
we'll
get to that.
Yeah. So yeah, we started just doing random stuff, and yeah, those first ones are like, I just go back, I'm like, oh my God, like, we thought people would want to watch that, like, like, but yeah, over time you polish up a little bit, but the Trump thing, it like overtook, like, another one of our good friends from high school. He was big, and it's kind of a funny backstory because me and him have always politically just yelled at each other. And high school was bad. Like, we hated each other. Junior, senior year of high school, we just hated each other. And then this election season comes around, we're podcasting. So, me and him start doing like little live streams and going over like political debates because I'm a dork with some of that stuff.
So am I. Yeah.
And so like we're not fighting like we used to. We're like both trying to find the common grounds on things now. Yep. And I was like, wow, this is really coming together. People were actually interested in that, and we started getting more and more. And then that's all it became. It became like we would go research just fun facts about stuff and talk trash, and then all of a sudden every show was politics. And I'm so glad it's over.
It's exhausting.
It is.
It is. And really, I have some the majority of my friends are probably on the opposite side of the aisle than I am.
Sure.
But that's kind of the beauty of the fact is that we can have debates and have conversations, and I could think that you're totally out of touch, and he might think that I'm a complete flaming liberal that,
Right.
or whatever. But then tomorrow he needs something or whatever, and I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling him, I'm helping him.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's just how I think the world needs more of that. Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's perfectly okay to not see eye to eye on certain issues.
Absolutely.
But when it gets so personal and hurtful and things like that, that's when it just crosses a line. You know what I mean? And so it's a shame that it came to that, but it's certainly not Trump's fault. It was getting like that long before.
Oh yeah, that's
what I mean?
been I'm trying to remember the name of the show. It was like right there. I was watching it earlier, and it talks about how like what is it, Murder by Media or something? It's on Netflix. They got a whole like series of just like how the, not necessarily just the media, but like, talk shows and everything's just become so damn personal
and combative. I mean, you look at the shows that are on ESPN. I mean, that's all it is just two guys arguing about stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's the voyeur mentality of people watching that.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And
it's the rage bait clicks,
yes,
man. It works.
It's so exhausting.
It is. Yeah. It is super exhausting. And like when that's where I like kind of started drawing the line on some of it. I'll still joke around, have like little pokes and fun, but it gets taxing on your life at a certain point, and it's not that you're afraid to like upset somebody, like you said, most of the time, tomorrow we'll shake hands, everything will be fine.
Yeah.
But like when you start seeing yourself like get angry when you hear somebody say something, you're like, they just said words, whether they know it's right or wrong or true or false, it doesn't matter. They're a person, and why are you mad? Like when you start getting the hashtag triggered.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's when you're like, dude, step away, walk away from this.
And I am one of the first ones to admit that there are some terrible people on the liberal side too.
Both sides.
On both sides. But I have a couple family members that were so anti-Trump that he's been out of office for 6 months now, and all his Facebook feed is just full of hatred. And I'm like, you won. Yeah. Like, let's move on. Yeah. To like nicer things to talk about, but it's they're so consumed with hating the guy that they can't stop not hating him because they don't have any other existence, right? And it's just that's
somebody who didn't step aside and walk away, like go throw a baseball with a kid.
I mean, it's the same thing with I think with COVID is I was a staunch supporter of wearing masks and taking it serious or whatever, but I'm also a staunch believer in the science, and the science tells me now I don't have to wear a mask anymore. Yeah. And I'm vaccinated and I can move on, and these people that don't want to let it go.
Oh, for political points.
Right.
Yeah,
yes. And I'm
so
just
weird.
Like, well, can we just get back to normal? I want to go to a baseball game and sit in a crowd. Like, we're back here. Let's, when something's wrong, it's okay to call it out and so on, but when it's been resolved, let's move on.
Yeah. It's the age of common sense is kind of gone, and when you live in when you're living in that world of being triggered about everything, it's hard to let it go. Sometimes it's almost like an addiction.
It's because they don't have anything else to fulfill their life. It's almost like there's
unfortunately,
those people that
I think
feed
they're right.
So much off of negativity that when there's nothing to be negative about, they don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's so toxic. It's just like I said, it can just drain you. It'll impact family, friends, so much stuff.
And you know what for me, what snapped me out of a lot of that was and I've been pretty prevalent about it on my podcast and on my posts and so on, was I had cancer 4 years ago, completely healed up, 100% cancer free. But man, that kind of stuff puts things in perspective, right? And when I'm sitting in a room getting chemo and I get there, and there's a 10-year-old little kid who's there already, and he's got chemo going, and when I leave, he's still doing it, and the kid's got to wear a mask all the time or whatever, my problems aren't so bad. Yeah. Right? I mean, those are the things that put your life in perspective, and you're pretty damn happy for what you have. And all the outpouring of support that I got from friends and this community and family and my work and whatever, a lot of people would say that was a shitty year. But for me, I look at it as it was a year where I really got to open my eyes up and see some of the great things that I had in my life, and I should be thankful for.
Yeah, that's beautiful. To come out of the other side. So cancer-free, everything's good?
Cancer-free, 4 years. I got diagnosed in September. It was actually on my wife's birthday in 2017.
Oh, hell.
And had stage 2 esophageal cancer. Went through 6 weeks of chemo and radiation. healed up for a month, and then they had an esophagectomy where they pull the esophagus out and stretch my stomach out and use that for my esophagus, and then kind of on the road to recovery since then. So
That's crazy what they can do.
yeah.
I've never heard that before. My mind's just like melting right now.
Here's
Like
what's
they can
crazy
do
is,
that.
10 years ago, I had gastric bypass surgery. I was about 460 pounds.
Oh, okay.
So at the time that I got diagnosed, I was probably right around 280 or so. And normally with a normal stomach, they would just pull it up and whatever. Well, with gastric bypass, part of my stomach wasn't
Right.
had been dormant for 10 years. So when I go to Iowa City, I had to go to Iowa City for a specialist. And I remember going there for the consultation, and I was like, well, doc, what's the plan? You've had 6 weeks to look at the records. And he's like, we'll figure it out.
Oh, shit.
I was like,
that's not what you want to hear.
What do you mean we'll just figure it out? He's like, we'll get in there. We'll figure it out.
Famous last words.
You're going to have to prep your colon. So, just prep your colon. If you can't use that, we'll use your colon. You're fine. We'll figure it out. And I was just like, that sucks.
Yeah.
Give me something.
Wow.
But worked out fine.
That's crazy that that just blows my mind that that's a thing. And then the doctor says that.
Right. Yeah.
Do you ever wonder, like in some professions, are they just fucking with you? Like just a little bit?
They're so far advanced in their thinking over me that they're probably, I'm worrying about 85 things.
Yeah, like I've had 50 of these guys.
This is routine. I'm hitting the golf course at 1 o'clock, that kind of a deal.
Could be. Yeah, that's nuts. Well, cheers to
to that
being over.
That's right.
Yeah, that's nuts, man. So I imagine that's got a lot of heartache stories, but yeah, like you were saying with when you see the other kids, like my boy got sick. He was like 2.5, 3. And so we're in Omaha Children's Hospital, and not getting any details, but yeah, we had those moments where like my wife still tells me the story to this day, like just how she just like has little hope for some humanity, and you know the type of people, and it's like you got all these kids on this floor that are in way worse shape than my son. We were there for a few months and all good today, but some of those kids never came home, and like you got people bitching in the elevator about a dislocated elbow.
Yes.
And like seriously, like shut your mouth. That kid over there, like he doesn't need to hear that.
Yeah, my mom taught me a long time ago when I would complain about something that there was always somebody out there that had it worse than I did. It took me a while to figure that out, but man, that snaps you right into place. That kind of stuff. Yeah, and again, it's just it makes you grateful for what you have. It makes you grateful for the people that are in your life that do things and are there for you. It really tells you who you can count on and who you can't count on too.
Yeah.
And I try to pay that back. I mean, that's just something I try to do.
Yeah, there's paying things back. Just whether that's in moments like that or just being nice to somebody once in a while.
Yeah.
The other day I was going to get stuff to rebuild down here and do a couple projects in the house, and older guys, probably 50, 60 years old, backs into my truck. I heard a crunch as I'm walking into the building. Pretty new truck. I'm like, like there's some people that would have lost their mind just hearing that crunch and seeing their vehicle.
Right.
And I look back and I'm like, all right, this guy's, the vehicle's not in good shape. It's an old rust bucket Blazer, and he pulls back forward. He gets out. He's super concerned. Like he, walks around the vehicle. He makes sure he didn't push my truck into something else. And, I could tell he had a lot of care and concern. He was freaked out about the whole thing. And I walk up. He's like, "Oh, is this yours?" I'm like, yeah, it's mine. I look, like literally just like an itty bitty little scrape on there. All the paint that transferred was from his vehicle.
Yeah.
Nothing happened to mine. And I'm like, dude, you got more damage than I do. Like,
Right.
What's the deal? What you want to do? He goes, man, this thing's a hunk of junk. He's like, I'm more worried about your truck. Like, let me get you my insurance info. I'm like, it's literally a scratch, dude.
Right.
Just shake hands. Let's walk away.
Yeah.
We're good. Like, you did absolutely nothing to my truck.
Right.
And like his face just like went pure white. Like, really?
Yeah. The relief of
I don't have to deal with all this extra shit.
when you get even a small amount of kindness shown to you,
Yeah.
how that can make somebody's day sometimes. You know?
Oh yeah.
I'm no saint. I mean, I will lose my temper. I will fly off.
Yeah, we all have those.
But you try not to do that. Yeah. But that's a perfect example of
I've seen so many people do that though, over nothing.
Oh yeah.
Over less than that. They would lose their damn mind
Yes.
for like a kid walking by and like smacking. I seen that before in a Walmart parking lot. Somebody would just like kids touch stuff.
Right.
And a kid walked by somebody's car and just like slapped it.
Yep.
Obviously ain't gonna hurt that vehicle. There's nothing wrong
No.
with what just happened there. Oh, people just lose their minds, start screaming at the parents. You get your kid under control, and it's like, who are you?
Right.
Like, what the
Yeah.
hell is this? People are crazy sometimes.
I tend not to get into conference. People will they're their own entities.
Oh, yeah.
Unless it affects me directly or whatever. With the exception of one time, about 3 months ago, I was in Costco, and this poor old lady was working at Costco asking this guy to put a mask on, and he was giving her the business. She had to be 65 years old. I mean, what do you get paid at Costco? I mean,
Yeah,
$12.
it's like-
I mean, and she's doing her job, and he gave
Like, if
her
it's
some
that
business.
big of a deal, do you
And I
take
literally
it, put it
just-
on for 5 seconds, walk away?
My wife
Like,
had walked away with the boys, and I turned around and I looked at the guy. I go, "Hey, did she ask you to put a mask on?" And he's like, "Yeah." I go, "Well, then either put the effing thing on or get out." It was like she's 65 years old, just doing her job.
Yeah.
Like, do you need anything in here that bad that you got to be a belligerent dick?
Right. Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, I don't need anything." And he walked out, and I was like, "Okay." Well, then I walked back over, and my wife goes, "Where were you at?" And Jordan was like, "I think I heard Chris yelling at people over there." I was like, I don't normally do that.
Damn it, Chris, what are you doing?
I just can't. Don't pick on old ladies. I can't. That's the threshold that hits it for me.
Yeah, I'm so excited. The amount of vaccines that have gone out, and finally, it like we got a glimpse of what normal was again.
Yes.
Like, I'm tired of those stories.
I am too.
People getting picked on like that. Just whether you're staunch on one side or the other about what your rights are and what they aren't.
Right.
But it was just like, we got tested. We got tested a lot.
Just another example of what you said about just having a little bit of kindness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Today I'm back in my office. I work downtown. I got on the elevator to go to the parking garage, and some girl walked in, and she goes, "Is it okay if I get on the elevator with you?" And I was like, "Sure." She's like, "Well, I'm vaccinated, but if you're not comfortable," and I said, "No, you're fine." And I thought, there's a genuine, just a nice, kind, like, where was that this entire year? You know what I mean? That would have been.
There was some of that.
There was, yeah.
Through the whole thing. So I started working. I didn't move here till November, but I was actually traveling and I was driving from Sioux Falls and then working all week, staying in hotels for like a month and a half prior to actually moving. But yeah, no, it was actually really good here in town. I was over, one of the hotels over by like Jordan Creek is where I was staying, but yeah, there were several times where like I could tell if somebody was uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or not. You had some people that, totally not masked, not caring. You had construction crews. You had all kinds of walks of life coming through there. But you could tell. And there was times where didn't matter if you're wearing a mask or not. They didn't want you on that elevator with them.
Right.
They didn't want you near them.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I'll just sit back here. Like, and you'd see them like panic pushing the button. It's like, I feel for you. Like, just go.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
You're
You
worried
can take
about
it,
it.
yeah.
I'm good. Like,
Right.
I'll take the stairs. I'll wait for the next one. Like, but you saw some people just like get weird about it. Some of them making fun of other people about it.
Yeah.
And, I get a little joking here and there, but sometimes people are just getting rude and mean with it.
Right. Joking is, there's a difference between joking and being hurtful and vindictive. And unfortunately, all we ever heard was the bad stuff. We never heard about all the good stories of people being kind or whatever else. You know what I mean? So those stories aren't as fun to tell.
No, usually they're not. That
the
is
shame,
very
right?
true. That is a damn shame.
Right. All you got to do is just read any headline whatsoever in any kind of a clickbait article, and I'll tell you that.
So bad.
So,
Yeah. Ugh. Anyway,
Yeah,
let's get back to
better.
pad podcasting. What's kind of been your like biggest aha moment through podcasting? That it doesn't sound like it was something that you were necessarily like wanting to jump into. It was just something that happened and you jumped into it, and this is where you are.
I would say probably my desire to just want to be a little more creative. When we first started, it was just me and him just talking back and forth or whatever, and then eventually I go, man, wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be cool if we got one guest on and we just interviewed a guest, right?
Right.
We don't know what we're going to talk about, but let's try that, So then we'd get a guest on, and then I started splicing some music at the beginning as an introduction.
Yeah,
and then,
your intros. Side note, your intros are like some of those. I was like, oh, I like what he did there. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And then like when we had we'd get a guest on, like I think the first one we did was probably Kyvan Gadsden, who was a wrestler up at Iowa State, and he was going to the Olympic trials. I had found his YouTube video of his famous post-game or post-wrestle speech where they were asking him how he felt and whatever. He's like, I just want some ice cream, man. I just want some ice cream. And he's famous for that saying. So I spliced that in, threw that in before the introduction, whatever, playing around with that. And I thought, man, that sounds pretty good. Like, not bad for an former IT guy to come up with a little bit of creative splicing in there or whatever else. So then I do that. And then when Coach McCarney came on, my podcast partner, Tim, who lives in Minneapolis, he was running late. Coach McCarney's on the Zoom call where I said, Tim should hop on here any minute.
It's like, you're going to be late for this one?
Tim texted me. He's like, dude, I'm stuck in traffic. I can't get home. I'll be about 15 minutes late.
Minneapolis traffic sucks. I'll give him the excuse.
So I didn't want to leave Coach McCarney hey, can you wait 15 minutes? So I thought, well, I've never done the opening. Tim's always done more of the opening and kind of driving the interviews, and I've always been just reacting or whatever.
Sure.
So on the fly, I'm going to introduce him. I'm going to introduce the sponsor. I'm going to do all this. Turned out pretty well. So that's it's just an aha moment of where you get into an indication where you're like, I don't quite know what I'm doing here, but what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Failure. Yeah. The only thing that means is that I'll just get better. So
you said you guys are sponsored. Oh, it's because you're kind of in that little, you're in it's like an umbrella.
Yeah. We're part of a website called the Tailgate Society. Our sponsor is Deadeye Barbecue Sauce, which is local here in Iowa. Cool. But we have different podcasts on there and different content with different, like there's a movie podcast and there's two girls that talk sports and corks. They talk about wine and sports and things like that. So it's a fun little thing. Tim has another one over there called Bitter Units, which is just basically all about beer, whatever, because he's a brewer by trade.
Oh, cool.
So, which I enjoy listening to because I don't know shit about beer.
Yeah.
My highlight is maybe a Coors Light. That might be my highlight of a beer that I drink.
Yeah, I kind of became a beer snob at a certain point in my life, and then I moved away. Now I'm doing the whiskey and
I drink a lot more hard liquor than I do beer.
Yeah.
I'll have Michelob Ultra, some of the light stuff is about all I can handle anymore.
Yeah,
I'm a lightweight.
I love my dark beers. I'm kind of a beer snob sometimes, and I really don't. There's very few IPAs I can handle and stand, but
yeah, I can't drink an IPA, and dark beer is really. I mean, I can maybe have one, and then that's about the end of it. I can't have any more than one.
That's what I love about it. Sometimes with a dark beer, that's all you need.
Yeah, that
one is perfect. It'll go great with a steak or whatever meal you have. A good pairing. It'll fill you up, and like especially if you're not trying to get buzzed or drunk or anything.
Right.
Like you're just trying to enjoy and relax. And
yeah. No, those are. I'm open to them and I try them, but there's very few dark beers that I'll drink.
Yeah.
But
fair enough. Now, so I do have. I'm gonna have to introduce you to another podcaster. So in my experiences over podcasting, like there's all kinds of groups online, and it's a great community. Like if it's a hobby or whatever, something fun. You got everybody that's trying to chase the dream. Right. Everybody wants to be the next Joe Rogan. That's never gonna happen.
No.
Like it went from. I'm trying to remember what the stats and the numbers were over the last few years, but it went from, a few 100,000 podcasters to it's like close to 2 million now of podcasts out there. So it's super saturated. But some of those groups, it's really fun to like watch some of the folks on there grow. And like sometimes they're just asking simple questions like, you know, how do I do something as simple as, you know, book a guest, or do I prepare questions for an interview, or like, it's like, hey, like just be yourself.
Yeah.
Like if you're not that interesting, like I'm not trying to shit on you, but if you're not an interesting person, people aren't going to watch. If you don't have interesting guests, people aren't going to watch. And if you're okay with that, then do it. Like it's not, everybody's got this like weird thought that this is like a narcissistic way to get things out. Like everybody thinks that every podcaster's got to be a little bit narcissistic, which maybe a tiny bit of truth to that. But that's not the recipe for success in any way, but it's also not really why they're doing it. Like it's usually there's more motives behind it. Like, is it to like connect with new people? Is it to keep up with old friends, and or just to fill your time researching and then talk shit about whatever you researched? I mean, there's a lot of that too. I mean,
for me, I've kind of gotten into the aspect of I just kind of enjoy. Usually, most episodes revolve around. I end up coming around and telling a story about my dad, and my dad's been passed away for 10 years, so it's a way for me to talk about him, and it's nice because my daughter will listen, and she'll be like, it's kind of like I get to know my grandpa more when she listens to it, you know. And some of my family members that live away, I've been more interactive with a couple of my nephews now online because they listen to every episode, and then we talk about whatever, you know. But for me, it's just fun to just talk, you know. I've always been one of those kinds of guys that could sit at the kitchen table and have an all-night conversation with my buddies and things like that. And that's really what it is, you know. And the best piece of advice I got was a couple months ago that said, you know what? If you're having fun,
who cares?
Who cares if you got 5 listeners or 50?
Exactly.
Right? I mean, if you're having fun and it is, and for me it is. When in my life would I ever get to talk to somebody like Marcus Weiser?
Right.
You know, never. Right. Now we text every once in a while and whatever else. And I'm going to Vegas to go to the UNLV game, and I'm probably going to hook up and have dinner with him. When would I ever be able to do that? You know? So if anything,
all because you just grabbed a mic and stared talking trash one day.
And started talking trash one night. Yeah. Who knew?
That's beautiful.
Right.
Man. That is beautiful. Now, like I was saying, there's one guy I had met on there. He had actually started following us on some of our older shows and things we were doing around the political time, because like his show is non-political at all. He's a shout out to Dads Worldwide, and literally just has people on and they tell like dad jokes, dad stories, interviews like different people. He's had a couple of decent name people on there, like one of the guys that was like one of the Bigfoot hunters they had on there that had his own show or whatever, and it's super fun, really, really cool guy, but like he doesn't talk politics at all on that show. So he started following us when we're heavy into the politics, because he's like, I got to get my fix every now and then.
Right.
So he started joining us on some of those, and it turned out like never met the guy in person. He lives in like New Hampshire. Like coolest guy in the world. He jumps on, talks with us all the time. We'll get on Zoom calls after, you know, we'll just sometimes we'll like record a show or do something, and then we'll like, all right, everybody, let's stay on here. We ain't recording any of this. Let's just drink and talk trash until 2 a.m. Like we do that sometimes, you know. But super cool. I never would have met, you know, some of the people that I know online if it wasn't for that.
Right.
And like not knowing them personally, I really don't care. Like,
well, you know, this show here, I've seen Craig Lamford on Facebook probably, well, for I don't know how many years, right?
Yeah.
You have a certain maybe impression of who he might be or whatever. Now, backstory, turns out I worked with him years ago when I was early in college. We both worked at York Steakhouse, which was an old steakhouse over here in Southridge Mall. And I thought maybe that was him when I'd see his name out there or whatever. But, you know, well, I'm not going to send him some phantom Facebook request and go, hey, are you the, you know. But after I heard him on your show, I was like, oh, I think I do know him, you know. And I got kind of to know what he was about and so on. And so it was interesting to be able to make that connection. And then I did message him, and I was like, hey, I think we worked together at York Steakhouse with, you know, Randy Jimenez and Brian and Jeff. And he's like, oh, my God, yeah, I remember you. And
nice.
So, Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those deals where you wouldn't think that would bring two people together or even give any kind of a memory. But this format that you're doing here for the town is really kind of cool. It gives you a chance to learn things about the town or whatever, and things that, people might connect other people. Oh, I didn't realize that he did that here or whatever. I always knew somebody did that, but I didn't know it was him. So,
yeah. And then we can have a distraction from all the fighting that's on the Facebook groups.
Dude, it's so. I will tell you, that thing is either a complete and utter shit show, or it can be pretty amazing.
It can be. I've seen some really cool stuff on there. 2
years ago, we were in vacation in July, and my two stepsons, Josh and Jordan, they have Williams syndrome. They have a disability.
Gotcha.
They don't drive anywhere. They don't go anywhere. We were in we were in St. Louis on vacation, and somebody had posted on the Norwalk page a photo of him from a screenshot from somebody else's cell phone, and said, "Does anybody know who this kid is? I caught him at the cemetery destroying cemeteries and whatever, and they ran off, and he dropped his phone." And I didn't even see the post. A buddy of mine that lives here in town texted me and said, "Hey, did you see the Norwalk Facebook page?" And I was like, "No." And so I looked at it, and it was a picture of this girl and Josh. Well, clearly the phone was from the girl,
right?
And she had Josh's picture on it, as the back thing. So I immediately messaged and said, "Hey, I don't know who you are, but that's my son. We're in St. Louis. You need to take this post down."
Right.
And he would not do it. Wow. I've got proof and so on and so on. And I was like, "What?" I literally called him through Facebook Messenger, and I was irate, screaming at him.
Right.
I was like, "I'm sitting here in St. Louis. He doesn't even drive. How would he get to a south side location of a cemetery? And the only reason he knew it was from Norwalk was because Jordan had Joshua had a Norwalk Special Olympics shirt on, because he participates in Special Olympics." So, needless to say, Josh is crying. The poor kid's
he's
upset. He thinks he's going to get in trouble or whatever else. Well, one of the admins pulled the post down, luckily. And then I had posted and just said, "Hey, listen, thanks everybody." And the amount of kindness that people posted on there towards Joshua, and a lot of the people that knew him, it just made his night. But there's a perfect example of how much of a shit show that page can be, and how great people can be in regards to it too.
Turned an awful moment into,
which immediately then made me question anything I ever see on Facebook. I immediately am like, that should give everybody quality of. And there are then sometimes where I will see people. That's when I sometimes, when people post on there and go, oh, they'll like snap a picture of somebody's car or something else, and then post it cryptically, like, if anybody knows this person, and it just makes me so angry. Like, you don't know the exact situation. Like, if you're concerned, go out of your house and go knock on the person's door and say, "Hey, can you move your car?" Or, "Hey, did you realize this?"
Yep.
Don't publicly shame people online. It's just a douchey thing to do.
It is. I love Dante's some of his posts lately. It's like he's posting about that awful intersection over there.
Right.
I hate that intersection. I about imagine being a truck driver. I saw a Frito-Lay truck driver trying to get out of there one day. I was like, holy shit, bro.
Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there are no good parking areas in Norwalk. Every parking lot in this entire town is messed up.
Yeah.
Like you try to get into the come and go down there. We had that conversation before we aired.
Yeah. You showed up. I'm not even home because I'm stuck at the come and go because everybody bitched about the road. Now they're fixing it. And I can't get out.
Like, God forbid you have to pick up medicine at Medicap and wait in that line to get through the drive-through. Or if you want to park, you got to snake through the drive-through lane. I mean, it's insane.
See what you people have done.
Right. Learn how to park around here. Frontage roads are terrible, by the way.
No, yeah, that's... some of it's been, it's an amazing thing that, like, the conversation people are having on Facebook with the come and go, like, drive, that little street area, like, the attention that it got over there might have helped get that fixed, which that's an amazing thing. Right. That's great. I'm glad that's a thing.
Right.
But sometimes it can go too far.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, it can. Well, the people that don't have anything else better to do, then that's the thing. But
shit talk about potholes and
right.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's a new neighbor a couple doors down from me, and his truck was directly behind my driveway for the longest time. And I just waited till I saw him outside one day, and I was like, "Hey, is that your truck?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "Would you mind just moving it down?" I blame my daughter. I said, "My daughter drives. I don't want her hitting your car in the morning. She doesn't know what she's doing." He's like, "Oh, sure, move it down." Well, you know what? That's amazing if you just go over and politely ask somebody instead of, I could have took a picture, posted it on Facebook, and said, "This neighbor's a jackhole and won't move his truck." Like, those are the people that I don't get.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think we all have those moments sometimes where you just make a bad. Maybe you're in a hurry, you're having a bad day, or you're just like, seriously, like maybe they did tell him, and it's still happening,
right?
So then they're like, fuck it, public shame.
Right now, I'm gonna public shame. There's for sure.
So whenever I see them, like, what was the one about there was some gal had made a really, really snarky comment about the guy's wife after he'd posted a picture of somebody parking too close to his driveway.
Yeah, I bruised through that.
That was, I'm not gonna lie, I laughed my ass off when I read it, but I was like, yeah, that dude, poor guy got, he's probably going shit.
Something about if you're gonna complain about how many inches.
Yeah,
you should probably talk to your wife or something of that effect.
She won the comments. Like,
right?
What do you do after that?
Yeah,
like,
now I got to read the rest of it to see what other gold is in here.
Yeah, right. So unfortunately, like, I've been owned on shit like that myself.
Oh, sure.
I've posted something and I walked them right into just making fun of me.
Listen, have you ever looked at my Twitter feed? There's a ton of terrible takes on there, ton of them.
I need to.
So. I do tend to then turn around if I make a mistake and go, yeah, that was bad. I fucked up. I don't ever delete them because,
Gotcha.
It is what it is. But there's plenty of times that I've said something and I was like, I probably shouldn't hit send on that.
Yeah. So that's funny. That's a thing I'll do sometimes if it's like, if I'm like out camping or just had too much to drink one night, I wake up in the morning and right away I'm like, oh shit! I'll just like grab my phone, checking. I'm like, did I say anything bad? Like, yeah. That's.
Did I offend anybody?
That is the worst panic sometimes in the morning, especially in today's age. Like, oh shit!
Oh, yeah.
Did I go too far? Or like,
no
but
kidding.
no. Yeah, there's been a couple mornings where I was like, nope, I'm deleting everything I said last night. Like, I jumped into somebody's comments and I shouldn't have. Yeah.
Oh, I've done that. Yeah, I've jumped in on a comment and then later on went, I think I'll remove that and just back out of the whole entire conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your Twitter handle?
@SciGradSciDad.
Okay.
So I'm a Cyclone graduate and my daughter goes there, so I grabbed that Twitter handle and so
I'll drop it in the comments.
The Old Man Strength, the podcast one is @strength_old.
Cool.
So,
cool.
Yeah. It'd be
I'm not a big Twitter fan.
I mostly got on there for sports. That's Cyclone Sports and talking shit to Hawkeye fans. I did a lot of that for a while, and then until I turned out they were people too, and they turned out to be pretty cool. So then
find out some of them live down the street. And
not like, Cornhusker fans though. None of those guys are cool.
Okay, here we go. No,
but then it got really, again, during the whole Trump thing, it was overwhelming. I finally had to mute.
Imagine.
Twitter has this great thing where you can just type in words at mute, and then any tweet that has that word in it, it just removes it. Biden, Hunter, Trump, all those. I just muted all those. I was like, I can't do it.
No, that is a good feature. Facebook needs something like that.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. There's a it's so weird. Somebody was like, hey, let's shake up the algorithm on Facebook and drop a comment if you never see me on here. I'm like, well, first off, anybody who never sees you is not going to see that damn thing.
Right.
And I was like, I kind of like the algorithm because obviously Facebook knows out of the few hundred friends I have on there, I only pay attention to like 25 of you, and the rest of you I don't care about apparently. So, hey, thanks for making it more efficient.
Yes.
Like,
right. Yeah.
So I put that as a kind of a shitty comment in there, but it's true. Like, obviously I didn't care about the 475 other people that I never
Twitter's
see.
the same way. I probably follow, 1,200 accounts.
Yeah.
I probably interact with 30 people on a daily basis. Like, and then sometimes I think, where are those other tweets at? Like, surely these other 1,200 people are tweeting something out every once in a while, but I never see them. Or I'll get a reply all of a sudden, and I'll be like, "Do I follow that guy?" Oh, sure enough, I do. He's never on there. The last tweet was like in April.
Nice.
So
I'll have to just buck up and get a. I'll make a Norwalk IRL.
there you go.
For Twitter.
There you go. That'll work.
I think I set one up originally. I don't think I've used it.
You know, I'm pretty. Here's what's funny is I'm pretty tech savvy. I was in the IT business for probably 12 years before I moved into marketing and so on at the job that I'm at, and I had a Twitter account probably for 10 years. Made no sense to me. Had no idea what the purpose was. Didn't enjoy it or whatever until a couple years ago. I started following Cyclone sports and talking basketball during basketball season, and
Sure.
that kind of got me roped in. But it's a different format, that's for sure. So
Yeah. It's yeah, I don't know. I've mainly because of what I've seen was like the news stories. There's a lot of journalists on there. There's a lot of people get it just for their news source.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
Facebook's got trash news too. So does Twitter. Like I'm just like I'm not using it for a news source. Jesus, no. But there are some cool things on there, news source wise. Like there are certain people that I'll follow that are like investigative journalists, reporters, or on the ground people. Like you get to see some of the raw footage of stuff before and like see what really happened before you see. Because on Facebook, Facebook you'll get the edited version of what happened, but on Twitter somebody's got the full length 5-minute video, and you're like, oh,
or the news organization where they've clipped it just at this certain spot, and then all of a sudden he said this, and you're like, okay, but hold on, what was the conversation right before that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I could very well say the guy that runs Norwalk IRL is a complete jackass.
Right.
And then
you wouldn't be wrong.
Right. But, and they'd cut it, and then, afterwards I would say, if he did this, this, and this, right? I mean, it's the same thing, right? So, I want to see, there for a while, I'd be like, if I didn't watch it live happening,
it probably didn't happen.
Then I'm not buying what you're selling me, right?
Yeah.
Like that, I'm not. Don't send me some fake news organization with this grainy clip that looks like this is a Zapruder film. I don't want any of that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no magic bullet stories going on tonight with this. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'll set one up. I just don't know how much I'll actually. I'm afraid that's another thing that I'll just like pay way too much attention to, and I probably don't want to.
Well, then you don't want to ever get on TikTok because that's a time suck
I know
too.
I'm on there.
That's a time suck too.
I have a Norwalk IRL TikTok page. I only posted a couple things on there just to see what happens with it. But.
I've posted a couple things for Old Man Strength, and it's mostly just me getting ready to mow the lawn or something stupid like that. Pull up the white socks and the white lawnmower shoes or whatever. But
TikTok's so it's fun.
You gotta be careful.
It's gross at the same time.
You gotta be careful what you accidentally like, because next thing you know, you're getting.
Oh yeah.
And at one point, I had to call my kid. I was like, I don't know how to get off this algorithm. I'm getting these. It's like I liked 2 videos, and then all of a sudden, I'm getting bombarded, and they're getting worse and worse.
Yep.
Oh, you got to hold down and click not interested. Okay, well, that's what I'm doing.
That's the most powerful thing you can do on there is not interested.
Right. Now I'm full of dog videos and Blackstone videos and grilling and old man stuff. And
that's good
some
stuff.
of those are good stuff.
I like the life hack ones. There's some cool stuff on there with life hacks.
Yeah, I like those too. Yeah.
And then there's the factor cap guys.
Oh, I haven't seen those.
They find like TikTok trends or like the videos that people make of like, here's a life hack, and then they'll go test them out to find out if they're actually real or not.
Oh, those are cool.
So they do a bunch of those. There are a couple of like Australian dudes that, sometimes they have some really funny ones. Sometimes
I'm really on a lot of the old wrestling documentaries, so they'll cut clips of some of the wrestling documentaries and whatever. And so I got all kinds of those now showing up in my timeline. So, which got me to start rewatching Raw and Nitro.
You poor guy.
From like 96.
Oh, the old ones?
Yeah, from
old
like
ones?
when the NWO just first started. But now what I do is I'll watch them in consecutive order. Like I'll watch the episode that happened that night of Nitro, and then I'll watch WWE's episode, and then each day, and kind of relive. Because that was super cool back then.
Oh,
I don't know.
was.
I think you said earlier you were a wrestling fan or whatever. But
back in the day, big time. Yeah.
But now when you watch it, you just realize Oh man, some of this is so cringe-rigidly like bad. Like some of the acting is so terrible. But when
They
I was a
had
kid,
zombies
I was like,
come to the ring. Yeah.
right. Or I caught one the other day where the Giant had just joined the NWO, and you could tell he was clearly reading from a teleprompter because they had
nice.
tore half the thing, and then it was getting ready to go to a commercial, and then he reread part of the script that he had read like 2 minutes ago because he hadn't scrolled it up, and I was like,
Shit.
that's all messed up.
Yeah.
So-
No, that's my two buddies that I was talking about earlier. They do they've done a wrestling podcast for like 3 or 4 years. So they were ahead of me joining on this whole thing. But they actually they went and bought one of those actual championship belts. And then they put their podcast name on there and stuff. And then every pay-per-view for like WWE, they would do like predictions.
Okay.
And whoever won the predictions would end up becoming the champ
And get to wear the belt. Okay, that's pretty cool.
It is super
Right.
cool. So they started. I got to start joining them here in this last year, and they are so mad at me because like I quit watching all pro wrestling
Right.
like when my kid was born, pretty much. Like I was like, I don't have time for this stuff
Mine would be
anymore.
when I met my second wife.
Yeah.
Just stopped watching.
So anyway, I've won it like since I've started. I've held it probably 75% of the time since I've been on their show. And other than like, I took like a 3-month hiatus for when I was moving here for work. And so like, I didn't even compete at that time. But so yeah, they have not been happy that they've called me the COVID champ. I've won every worst pay-per-view event that's ever happened in wrestling is pretty much so. They're like, I'm not legitimate in their eyes as a real champion, but I am a 3-time Revolutionary Wrestling Podcast champion now.
There you go.
I'm taking it back here on June 20th. I think is the next pay-per-view.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. This coming Sunday.
My boys are pretty heavy into watching it now, and I'll watch WrestleMania with them or whatever, but I'll be like, it's just not as fun and not as good as it was before during the Attitude Era and
Yep.
and things like. I mean, I could re-listen to some of those promos of The Rock and Stone Cold over and over again.
There's some of those. Yeah, it's so crazy. Like I did not watch WWF at all. I was straight up WCW.
I was too going into it. Yeah, I was always rooting for WCW and Nitro.
Yeah. And then like I go back and watch some of those old clips of The Rock and Stone Cold, and I was like, man, I get it now. Like afterwards, I'm like, that was some good writing. It was really entertaining. But I'm like, well, I missed that portion of it, but it's what it is.
It's fun to watch it now and watch some of those characters start to evolve now. Like the area that I'm in right now is just right before Stone Cold really kind of becomes a baby face, and he's trying to get heat and trying to have people hate him, but they just don't want to hate him because they're all just want to be like him. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting to watch some of those character developments and things like that.
Yeah. There's so many cool old like stories and documentaries about how all that went down. Bret Hart's getting screwed over through the whole thing. Like, some of the real life storylines on that were probably more interesting than the show itself. In the later years.
And he does a nice. Stone Cold does a cool interview show, an interview show on WWE Network that is really cool called Broken Skull. But kind of the same thing. They bring those in. They talk about some of that stuff and some of the behind scenes stuff. I'm a big history buff, anyways. Whether it's anything that I'd be interested in, if it's historical, I'll soak it all up and read it and watch it. So
yeah, I was digging through. You mentioned history. I was digging through my mom, her side of the family came over from Sweden in like the early 1800s, and it would have been her great uncle, I think, wrote a whole book about our family history. It was like a personal biography type thing. Translated it, like he didn't speak English or anything when he got here. But it was super cool. I probably am getting the timeline all wrong, but I literally just found it the other day. But it's like his whole life story history that he had somebody translate for him, wrote it all down. It talks, how he came over here, where all they lived, and he'd been married several times, and you know, from coming in at Long Island and then moving across the country slowly, like making his way to Pittsburgh and then to Chicago, and then, you know, moving down to Kansas eventually, and then living throughout Kansas, Nebraska area. But yeah, I like that when I found that book, because she gave that to me when I'm trying to remember how old I was when she had printed a whole bunch off for us kids. I was young. I didn't care. Like, right. I'm always interested in history, but I was like, I'll read this someday. I literally just found it the other day. I was like, oh my God, I forgot all about this. So I'm super pumped to just sit down and read it.
That would be really
and go
cool.
through it, because like, yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I love the history, but like when you see something like personal like that and see a family history of it, like. And
you start connect the dots with the people and things like that. That would be super interesting to read.
I'm super pumped to get through that thing and see if I learn anything cool out of it. But
that's really neat.
You ever do any of the the family tree thing and any of those sites?
I haven't done a lot of that stuff. I know my mom was into that quite a bit, and you know, she's gotten a little older now, so she doesn't remember as much. So it's kind of sad too. But my oldest sister is kind of my go-to now.
Gotcha.
She's pretty well tuned into family history and things like that. So anytime I want to ask something like that, she'll usually, and it's usually not the memory that I have, like you know, something happened, and I'll be like, and she'll be like, well, let me tell you the real story about what happened. You know, not your
you forgot this part,
right? Not your lofty little, you know, memory that you might have when you were 10. Let me tell you what really happened. You know, because she's 10 years older than I am, so.
Yeah, it's funny how some of that happens. You said you were doing like old man, you know, your old man stories. I got a lot of my old man stories, but usually a lot of them are not appropriate.
Oh yeah.
But
Same.
But like there's so many other ones, and you know, me and my brothers, like that's like some of the greatest times of spending with family and brothers. It's like just sitting down telling old stories about, you know, mom, dad, and about each other and stupid shit we did. And like there was one I remember, people talk about like strange foods they've eaten and weird things. Like my dad, he cooked a turtle. It was a big, huge snapping turtle. And I had like no desire when he said he was going to cook it up. I was like, I really don't care. I'm not going to eat this. But he ended up, so he had one of those big, huge like turkey boiling pots with peanut oil in there. And he was just going to drop it in there. Well, he'd cut the head off, but those turtles, like they still flinch.
Around.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And as soon as he started to slowly drop it in there, the tail went dropped and it splashed. And my dad had one of those big, huge, round bellies.
Yeah.
All over him. Just hot, boiling mess of water. And it was 4th of July weekend. And so we're rushing him up to the hospital, and they gauze him all up and give him all kinds of lotions. And like he had these weird like skin scars and peeling all over afterwards. But damn it, we finished cooking that damn turtle. And so we finished this turtle, and he's all like, well, there's 7 kinds of meat in a turtle or some shit. Like, I don't know, there might be more. But yeah, so like this thing was huge. It was a huge snapping turtle leg.
Man.
And so like I showed up to his house like 2 days later, just check on him, make sure he's all healing up. And he's sitting there and he's frying up more of that damn turtle and warming it back up. And he's like, he hands it to me and my wife, and he's like, you guys got to try this. This stuff's really good. And I'm like, it's like just chewing rubber.
Right,
the flavor was all right, but I'm chewing rubber.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just doing this because my dad just took a bath in peanut oil while cooking the damn thing. I just got to live through this moment with him. Like,
it's funny what our old men used to eat, because I came home one time and the house smelled god awful. I mean, it was god awful. Of heavy pickling spice and whatever. And I was like, what are you making? And he was boiling a cow's tongue.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, I am not eating that. He's like, oh, it'll be just like bologna. We'll slice it right up. And I was like, well, I don't really care for bologna.
Right.
And I'm not eating a big old cow's tongue. And he pulled that thing out. I mean, it was gigantic. And I was like,
yeah, those things are huge.
Oh, man. And then, you know, that always prompted, he'd have to tell me about stories of what his dad would make and whatever else. And I was like, I'm getting a frozen pizza. I'm not eating that. No way.
Nice.
I'll pass.
Like the best dad story I think I have is my old man. What movie? It was like Jack and the Beanstalk or something. Yeah, we were watching like it was. I think we were babysitting my nephew, and my old man was like he just got home from the bar. He was like pass out drunk at that time. Like he was like sitting on his bar stool, like oh these kids are watching this stupid. And so we're watching this, and they're like, and Jack didn't get to have dinner when he came home, and he's sitting there just leaned over. He goes, "Well, poor fucking Jack." I just fucking lost it. So to this day, that's still the joke. Whenever we hear something bad happen to anybody named Jack, we just, poor fucking Jack.
Oh, see, that's what's fun is you start to roll off the stories and tell funny stories or whatever. I can tell you that one time my dad, well, probably the best story. I mean, there's no shortage of stories about Melvin. I'll just tell you.
Gotcha.
But one of the ones, my sister, not my oldest, but my second older sister, was nothing but a prankster. I mean, April Fools. You did not answer the phone when she called. You did not. I mean, you just didn't because something was going on. Well, my dad was never very well off, and when he had his business, he started to get a little money, whatever, and he bought himself a Jaguar convertible. It was a used car, but it was probably the nicest car he'd ever owned. And he took it to this place called Dave Ostrom's Imports downtown to have it worked on. Well, my sister, it just happened to be April 1st.
Gotcha.
So my sister,
great day for something to happen,
so
right?
My sister had a buddy of hers call him. And act like he was the technician from Dave Ostrom Imports and got Dad on the phone and said, "Hey, just want to let you know, we were moving your car and we accidentally backed it into a post and there's some pretty significant damage." And instantly, I mean, my dad's temper was never super great anyways. Like he had a short fuse.
Sure.
I mean, he lost it. Well, what the hell happened, whatever? And he's like, I'm really apologize, but I'm just calling to get your insurance information so that you'll be able to turn it into your insurance.
Right.
And my dad's like, if you think I'm fucking paying for that, I mean, he was livid, screaming at the poor guy on the phone. And he's like, well, let me call you back. So then he hung up. And my sister was working with us at the time in the store. She's in the corner. She can't stop laughing.
Nice.
And he catches her laughing. And I mean, he just tears into her. I don't know what you fucking think is funny, but this car better, And so then the guy called back. I thought my dad was going to have a coronary. And finally, he went to go get his keys. He was going to drive down there, and I told my sister, I said, "You need to, you need to get this right now." Yeah. And so sure enough, she was like, "Dad, that was my buddy, so and so," and he was still pissed.
Jesus.
It was almost one of those deals where he was so mad then that he didn't know what to do with his angry because he wanted to release it on somebody. But man, later on, we would tell that story all the time. He's like, "Oh, it still ain't funny," but.
Yeah,
it was.
Sometimes they would come around and say it was kind of funny. We remember when soundboards first came out, like when you could fuck with people and prank calling them.
Oh yeah.
This is when cell phones are just barely a thing. I remember I'd pulled up. Oh, what was it? What movie is that? Full Metal Jacket. Full Metal Jacket. Yeah, and it was funny because like. My dad was kind of a short guy. It was like, I can't remember. It was like, how tall are you, Private? He's like, I didn't know they could stack shit that high. Oh, man. It worked. My dad, like, played into it so perfect. I couldn't believe how well that call went.
Oh, man.
And so then he gets back to his place, and me and my brothers are sitting there. We're still laughing about that phone call because he's like, this son of a bitch called me up. And like, we're like, yeah, that was us, Dad. He's like, you little fuckers. Yeah, we messed with him quite a few times doing those, but
oh man,
I miss the days of early cell phone call. It was like the early days of prank calls.
Yeah,
were fun because you could really get people good. Yeah. But now most people are like, yeah, I know what's going on.
Even before you had caller ID, you had caller ID was when you could really,
Yep. You could really mess with people.
Yeah. Yeah, my same sister. My same sister she lived in Lacona, which is south of Norwalk here in Warren County. And my oldest sister had lived in Des Moines. And my sister Dee was working at a hair salon in at Southridge Mall.
Gotcha.
So she called my oldest sister, Jackie, and said, hey, I can't get my car started. Can you come down and give me a jump? So Jackie's like, yeah. So she drove all the way to Southridge. Well, the whole time, my sister's D's down at her house.
No.
You know, she just wanted... My sister, poor Jackie, drove around Southridge for like an hour. Well, you know, there's no cell phones, so you can't, you know, pull over and go, where you at or whatever.
Yeah.
She thinks something happened. You know, she comes back home. She goes to my dad's house.
Pranks got real back then.
Yeah, she's frantic, you know, freaking out. Then my dad calls down there. D's down there the whole time.
Oh, wow.
You know, my poor sister, Jackie, I think probably wasted half a tank of gas, which at the time... It wasn't like she had a lot of money. She's like, I wasted half a fucking tank of gas. You know,
Looking for you.
You owe me $10, you know?
Jeez.
But yeah, before cell phones or whatever else, those pranks were great.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. They were real.
Yes. And on the flip side, my daughter and I were watching Stranger Things on Netflix. I don't know if you've ever seen that
great show.
Yeah.
Great show.
So mid-'80s, right when I grew up, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right in my wheelhouse. And they're going off on their bikes at 10 o'clock at night in dark, and my daughter pauses the movie, and she's like, hold on.
This is the thing?
They do that?
Right.
She's like, I was like, yeah. I said, I wouldn't get home till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I was like, I was on my bikes. I was either at my friend Scott's house or my friend Chris's house or whatever.
Yep.
And usually, and they were like, well, how did they know where you were? What if they had to get a hold of you? They didn't.
They didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just so foreign to her as a concept that she was like, how is that even possible?
Yeah. It's like talking, I'm a big fan of The Office, and like there's one episode where they're like holding the handheld phones and like twirling the lines. Like, my son didn't get the joke. He's like, what the hell are they doing, Dad? And I was like, oh yeah, that is such an 80s 90s meme. Like, that's like, you can't show a kid today like a girl sitting there with a pillow holding the phone, like
twirling that curly thing,
the cord,
and it was all jacked up, you know.
Oh,
there was always one part where it was all jacked up at the end, and I would spend countless hours trying to fix it, right? Yeah, and I couldn't never get it to fix.
It was never gonna work.
Nope.
No. I remember some people still had rotary phones. You'd go to like grandma's house, and she would have a rotary phone. You're like, what the hell is that thing?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also told my daughter one time about teen lines, and she was messed up on that too. You had a separate phone line for a teenager, and pagers. Yeah,
yeah.
Those were man.
Remember, those were gangster.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. We actually sold those in our store. We had a computer store, a used computer store, and this guy came in and wanted to put a kiosk in there. And at one point, we were selling pagers, and I was like, I don't know that we want that clientele in here, Dad.
Yeah, well, it was like. That is such a weird technology to think about. Like, it was a text message.
Yeah.
But you couldn't reply.
No.
Like, it was a one-way text message and you were like, oh shit, I better go call them.
Well, and I remember the big thing at that time was when my first wife was pregnant with our first daughter, I got a pager because if she needed
just
to
in case,
if she was going to go into labor or something and I wasn't near a phone, she could page me. So
it's crazy that, like, when those came out, everybody's like, oh, I gotta get me one. I'm like, who the hell's paging you?
Yeah.
Like, I remember sitting there thinking, you know, I'm a teenager going,
yes,
who the hell's paging that guy?
It's
like,
the same douchebags that used to have the Bluetooth headpieces and they'd walk around the store with the Bluetooth.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you'd be like, are you really that important that you
have
to have a Bluetooth walking around Walmart? Well, you know, you might just get an important phone call.
It hasn't changed though. We just skipped that.
Yeah.
We skipped that whole thing. It's no longer about doing that. It's just you're just sitting there FaceTiming on speakerphone and just telling everybody your fucking world's problems. And I'm just like, oh my God, I don't care about any of this.
And the younger people they'll FaceTime all the time. Like Josh will walk downstairs. He's talking to his dad.
Yeah.
And he's on FaceTime, and I'll be like, "Can you not? I don't want to hear your conversation.
Right.
I don't need to hear your conversation. Just talk on the phone like a normal person."
Yeah. That's the one thing I do like. I do like some of the like AirPods, earbuds, and stuff like that. Because like I'll FaceTime like my brothers. Like I'm the youngest of all of them, but like I'm probably one of the more tech savvy. A few of us are pretty tech savvy, but like they always want to FaceTime. I'm like, okay, it doesn't bother me. Like,
Yeah, I don't mind it, but it's just like every conversation
yeah, it's got to be private.
Right. It's like, listen, you're having an entire conversation with your dad. It's great.
Yeah.
But I don't need to hear the whole conversation and I become my dad. I'm trying to watch TV over here.
Yeah,
I can't hear anything.
Yeah. It's like, dude, like,
Right.
I don't know how much louder I got to make this
Yes.
damn thing before you get the hint.
My daughter will call me from college. Caitlin will call me from college, and she'll be on the bus FaceTiming me. And I was like, I can't hear a word you're saying. You're in the bus.
That is the worst. That is the worst.
Can you just text me what you want to tell me? Well, I just thought maybe I'd see you. Okay, well, all I see is half your face and the logos from the other part of the bus. That's all I see right now.
Yeah. It's either the people that have like horrible connections. And so like it's and they're just like Mr. Roboto on the screen. And then, but then, like me and my brothers, like we'll have like 6 of us will jump on like a FaceTime or a messenger call. Yeah. And like we'll all talk trash and just have a good old time. But there's always one that's got like wife, kids, dogs, and all kinds of shit going on in the background. And then like, dude, mute yourself. Like seriously, mute yourself because we can't even hear each other talk right now because your background's so loud. And they don't do it. Like they're like, there's an etiquette now between FaceTime and Messenger
and now
video,
Zoom, and which was not a thing a year ago.
I know.
Nobody knew what Zoom was.
Yeah,
15 months ago.
I knew because of podcasting, but nobody else did.
Nobody else did.
Yeah. I was like, but there's people don't know this new etiquette that needs to come along with their little bit of privacy and like, hey, like there's a mute button, damn it.
Yes.
Like that's probably the phrase of 2020 is you're not on mute.
Right. Or you are on mute. We can't hear you.
Oh yeah.
You're on mute.
Yeah. That's the other one is I had to find the mute button. Like, I don't know how many times I've said that in the last 12 months. I probably, it just drives me nuts when I hear it now.
There were a couple times. So they sent everybody home from my work, and my boss, I would sometimes call her and I would say, hey, I don't understand, because normally if I'm in the office, I say, Kelly, come over here. I don't quite understand this. So if she'd come over and look at my screen, we'd work on it. So I would just share my screen with her, and then half the time we're off the call and I forgot to unshare my screen. Well, next thing you know, I'm looking at ESPN.com. I'm scrolling through Twitter for 20 minutes, and pretty soon she'll IM me. She's like, "Hey, I can still see your screen." I'll be like, "Oh shit."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
some people got in a lot of trouble over that.
Yeah, they did.
Jeffrey Toobin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That poor bastard.
Well, I mean, come on. First of all, if you're doing that at your desk, you probably have a problem, right? Like, at least go to your room, for goodness sakes.
That was one of those ones that, like, I think it brought people together. We're talking like everybody was fighting through politics that whole time. The whole Jeffrey Toobin thing, I think was a moment when most people realized, oh shit, that can happen to anybody at any time, and it's nobody else's business.
Nope.
Holy shit. And it got blown up. And like,
well, and there was a lot of that. There was that one lady that was doing she was doing a newscast from her home, and her husband walks out of the shower behind her all buck naked. And you're just like,
it was just like, oh dear. But I think that's when people kind of separated themselves of being too judgmental.
Yeah.
And non-accepting of some things. And I think that was a good turning point. He's back on CNN now.
Is he? I guess I hadn't seen.
That was the cringiest. Allison Camrero or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
So she had him back on. It was so embarrassing. I felt so bad for the dude, but she's like, well, we're going to talk about this. You've been missing. And you were caught masturbating, and I was just like, "Oh my, holy shit, they're doing this!" I was like,
"That's crazy."
I'm like this, but again, it's that clickbait gold TV. It's too personal.
Right. Yeah, you gotta address it.
He had to sit there and say, "Yeah, I made some bad choices."
I think the best I saw was a couple weeks ago was a clip of a Zoom call of a guy that logged into a court hearing. He had a court hearing. Did you
His
see
name?
that? And he forgot to change his Zoom name from Buttfucker 3000. Man, like you got to check that stuff, people.
Yeah, I saw. Oh God, somebody had sent it to me. It was a little TikTok video, and it was something about like leading up to like what's your name, and then it cuts to that clip, and he sees the judge. It says the judge reading it. Yes. Buttfucker 3000.
I did see that the other day. Oh my gosh, that was funny.
Oh
yeah, I am part of the Knights of Columbus at St. John's, and we did Zoom meetings, and that was brutal. It was.
yeah.
I mean, having to mute everybody and then unmute somebody when somebody wanted to talk and bring something up and whatever. I was like, I don't care if I have to wrap myself in some kind of mummy face. We've got to bring these meetings back into normal people because I cannot do these Zoom meetings anymore. I can't do them.
It gets pretty brutal. Even like I'm trying to remember back through like through the whole lockdown and everything. Like we were just starting to get back into going to church, and not like all the time, just even for holidays, just like, or every few weeks. It wasn't like a every Sunday deal, and then COVID hit, and it was just like, oh hell, like we can't even do it. But like where we lived in South Dakota, the gal there, she was young, she was tech savvy. She was streaming live on YouTube, to where everybody from home could jump in, and like she was trying to read live chats on there. Like, God bless her, she was trying her hardest to reach out to folks. So that was cool to see that, like even that was a town of like 5,000 people, so it's not like a huge community, but that was early on, even in South Dakota, and it's the beginning of COVID, before politics hit it, and like none of us knew what was going on.
Everybody was on board because you just didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember I was one of the last ones that was still working in the office, and there were some times where I was legit like, this feels a little Walking Deadish.
Yeah.
Like I'm parking, I would park in the parking garage, which was packed every day. And I had my pick of spots, and it was like walking through a deserted parking lot.
That's so
and
creepy.
Then sitting in my office, our office holds maybe 200, 250 people, and I was one of 6.
Yeah,
and I was
crazy.
Like, this is a little creepy, but kind of the same deal. Our church shut down, and then they were Facebook Living off of a cell phone and a Wi-Fi signal. I had to cover for the lady one time. She asked me to cover one Sunday, and she said, Father, well, first we couldn't get Wi-Fi in the actual chapel because it was so bad. So she's like, you need to run off Father's hotspot. And I was like, okay, well, we had this microphone and this camera and then the YouTube camera or whatever, and I'm running off, and Father walks in, and he hands me his phone, and it's at like 40%, and I'm immediately panicking.
You're like, this ain't gonna work. This is gonna go really bad,
right? So I get it all hooked up, and of course the mic. So I plugged it in and let it charge for the 15 or 20 minutes before we started mass.
Get as much as you can.
To get as much as I can. Well, at some point, the microphone plugged into the same port, so I couldn't charge it. So we get close to the end, and he does this special prayer, and all of a sudden, he's at the end of like communion, and it gives me the 20% message, right? And I'm
oh no,
I'm panicking, right? And then
hurry it up,
right? Yeah. So then at one point it gets to 10, and he's getting ready to do this long prayer, and I text my buddy. I have my phone, and I text my buddy, and I go, what's the karma if I give Father the wrap-up sign here? Because I was like, what do I do to Father? Just go, hey, let's go. Let's wrap it up here, dude, because you're going to run out of juice, Somehow we got through it, but it was at like 5%, and I just go, Father, I'm going to be here next week. I really need you to charge your phone before you come in here.
Yeah, that's insane. You ever mess with, I think it's called Mevo? So it's actually, especially for church functions, I think it's like, it'd be perfect in those scenarios, or even concerts, but church functions specifically. But it's like it's a 4K little camera.
Yeah.
But it has auto face tracking.
Oh, really?
And it'll like zoom in and follow. I had picked one like with COVID, like everybody was buying all of these like streaming devices and stuff, and then they didn't know how to use them or couldn't use them for whatever reason. So like I've been just watching Facebook sites and picking up some.
That's a good idea.
I'll have to show it to you when we get finished.
Yeah.
It's super cool. It syncs up with your phone or an iPad or whatever. And like you can manually control it, or it can auto track. Like if somebody's on stage walking back and forth, the video recording on it is amazing. The sound sucks,
right?
But the video is fantastic. And for live streaming, they do have like little hookups for like what I'm trying to remember what kind of, it's like the bullet mics or whatever you can add to them. So really awesome, especially for like I said, a church service or any type of performance thing.
That would be cool.
Those are really awesome.
I hadn't thought about looking at Facebook Marketplace, people buying that stuff and not realizing that they don't need it anymore. That's not a bad
You haven't
idea.
been able to buy a webcam for a year.
Yeah.
All of a sudden now everybody's like, well, my podcast isn't taking off. So they're selling all their stuff.
Equipment.
Yep.
I was working out, and I still do, but when they shut the gym down, I immediately started buying, bands or strength training or whatever. But man, the amount of stuff that you could not buy at that point, I was like, everybody and their mother's buying weights and strength bands.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. That stuff took off right away. I'm trying to decide what to do with the rest of my little pad down here. I'm like, I don't know. Like this would make a cool gym, but I'm like that's a good spot for a pool table. But I'm like, the best pool tables are like boats.
Yes,
they're awesome the first day you get one, and they're even better the day you get rid of it.
Right,
It's like that old joke. But
well, I'll tell you, a nice little poker table would look nice there.
Nice little poker table would.
That's actually what the last pool table I had. I actually converted it to a poker table, and I would play Texas Hold'em tournaments with a bunch of my buddies, and we would just sit down there and play in my little bar area in the old house that I had. But
nice,
because we never played pool. I built a tabletop that just laid on top of it, and we just ended up playing cards right there on that pool table.
Yeah.
So
but that's probably what I would end up doing. I thought about like right here at the corner, like throwing a wall over and sealing this up. I enjoy cigars when I'm drinking.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to like seal this off, put a little cigar vent right there, and then I can just smoke inside. Like,
that would be nice.
That would be nice. I don't know how much that would run or cost, but I don't know. I can dream.
Not the way lumber is, right?
Oh yeah. I'll leave that alone. Well, framing wouldn't be bad. It'd be more the insulation and
and the vents and the
I don't know. I better finish my current project before I get too crazy with other ideas, right?
Right. No kidding.
Yeah. One step at a time. Damn
Yeah.
it. So, we can start wrapping up again. So, go through your podcast, your Twitter handle. Where can everybody find you? All info and how to reach you if they want to.
Yeah, you bet.
Well,
if you want to talk some trash or email me, whatever, I'm at cygradcydad@gmail.com. My Twitter handle is at cygradcydad. The podcast at strength_old. We just bought some T-shirts. We're selling some T-shirts, which were made from a local guy here. I don't know if you've hooked up with the Norwalk shop here in Norwalk and Chad. So anytime you need some merch or T-shirts or whatever, Chad will get you hooked up. But
shout out to Chad.
He's a Hawkeye fan. I cut him some slack. But
I don't know if I can do business with this guy.
I know.
No.
Right, I know. And then on Facebook, we've got a Old Man Strength podcast Facebook page there. So, and I'll give a shout out to the Knights that I work with too. I will tell you, what's really nice about this town is the amount of charity that they do. The Knights do a college scholarship fund that we put on a dinner and a dance and an auction every year. And this town supports it so well. The businesses will give donations or whatever, and just brag a little bit. We, on average, the Knights give anywhere from 15 to 16 $1,000 scholarships every year, just based out of that little event every year.
That's beautiful.
It's super cool, and the businesses and the people around this town have done a wonderful job about supporting it and so on. And somehow we didn't have an event. We had it all online this year, and we still gave 15 $1,000 scholarships to kids here in Norwalk.
That's fantastic,
So,
man.
yeah, I'm really proud of it.
I'm learning to love this town more and more all the time.
There's some good people here.
Yeah.
There are some really good people here.
It's an amazing stuff. I got to poke fun at my brother. I do this every now and then.
That's all right.
My brother told me so I had Dante on episode 1.
Yeah.
And he goes, way to go. You found the one interesting person in the middle of Iowa. And here we are, episode 5. And yeah, still going strong.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
and,
this is great.
Yeah, good stuff. We'll do this again eventually sometime.
We'll have you on.
Hell yeah. Let's
That'll
do
work.
it, man.
Let's do it. All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.